So friends, in the medieval segment, that is unit 2 of the syllabus of the regional history, most important is Qutubshahis. Yesterday we have seen how the political developments, brief political history of Qutubshahis. We have also discussed social and economic conditions, and most important is culture. Of course, in the examination, I do expect questions on Qutubshahis in 3-4 ways, as I mentioned in the previous class. One is, of course, the social and economic conditions they might ask, and more importantly, the cultural contribution. Why Qutubshahis are important from the cultural point of view is, if you see both Andhra and Telangana in medieval India, in medieval period, the last major regional kingdoms were Kakatiyas and Qutubshahis. Of course, Vijayanagara was there, parts of Andhra was also under Vijayanagara, and more so in Telangana, especially, Qutubshahis made greater impact than in Andhra. But of course, we have to see culture as a combined entity. We cannot bifurcate. The Telugu culture, the best correct way to deal with this is the Qutubshahi culture at the Telugu speaking regions. In the examination also, respect to whatever states you will be writing, whatever you are writing, I suggest to use the word Telugu speaking regions, because Qutubshahis, they ruled over the entire Andhra. That is the main point. Okay, we cannot segment. But Telangana, definitely they had more impact, different cultural impact, because this is the seat of their power. That is the reason. So basically, Telugu, this is what I was saying. They had very interesting contribution to culture, Telugu culture, in the sense that, see, we have discussed yesterday that the Qutubshahi, the founder, Uli, was actually from Turkey, right? The Kuratil region from Turkey. He came and settled down here. And though these people were foreigners, technically, yes, he is foreigner, no doubt about it, right? But then, the beauty of Qutubshahi rulers was that they got localized completely. In fact, from the third ruler onwards, Muhammad onwards, you will be surprised that they hardly remembered that they were foreigners, their origin. In a way, culturally speaking, we can draw parallels between the Qutubshahis as well as Mughals, as far as cultural contribution is concerned. Even in the case of Mughals, you see, for example, Babur came from outside. Babur was a foreigner. But even Humayun was not born in India, right? But whereas from Akbar time onwards, how they got localized, Indianized at the national context, if you see Qutubshahis, the main contribution of Qutubshahis, cultural contribution, the uniqueness of the Qutubshahis compared to other rulers is actually that they got fully localized. Localized in terms of their rule, in terms of their administrative practices, in terms of the choosing of nobility or the composition of the nobility, in terms of language. If Ibrahim Qutub Shah, if at all he was speaking, it is very difficult to identify that he was a foreigner legacy. His Telugu is better than most of our Telugu, honestly. It is always written that Ibrahim Qutub Shah's Telugu is he is very fluent, proficient in Telugu. So, and of course even other rulers, they never had any distinction. So the only kingdom in medieval South, the only kingdom in medieval South that is comparable to the Mughal culture, cosmopolitan Mughal culture in the North India is Qutubshahis. That is how we need to understand the significance of their cultural contribution. And while we broadly say that the Telugu culture, they contributed, their contribution, their impact was definitely more on Telangana region in terms of language. Okay, of course, in Andhra Pradesh also, today's Andhra Pradesh, post 2014 developments, in Andhra Pradesh also, if you see the sizable number of Muslim population in some of the places like Rajavandri and other areas, they actually date back to Qutubshahi period. Okay, so the Telangana culture per se, Telangana culture as such, is definitely more influenced by Qutubshahis because of the physical proximity. Their seat of administration is in Golconda, right? Whereas Andhra is a bit far. In the current political economy, where we have two states, you specifically need to mention this, whatever state you are writing. This is a combined class, Qutubshahis. We have a lot of AP students and also Telangana students watching it online. So friends, what I suggest is you specifically make this point. I would make this point in the notes also. You have to say that there is a difference in the impact, cultural impact on Andhra and Telangana regions. But as a whole, we are talking of a period when there was no Andhra and Telangana bifurcation. We are talking of a remote history. So we have to identify it as a unique contribution to the Telugu culture or Andhra Telangana cultures. That is how you need to see. Now when we say that they have contributed, what kind of contribution we see? When we say cultural contribution, what kind of contribution we see? See, basically we see language and literature. You know, we have 4 important trends in language and literature. You know, in the mains, we always need to add an element of analysis. Writing names of the books and others which you might have read for films and group 2 is not going to help. Now, what are the broad trends? How do you quantify? How do you analyze the nature of language and development? There are 4 trends here. We are talking about language and literature, right? So, there are 4 trends here. First of all, you know, in any language you see, whether it is Persian works, whether it is Urdu ghazals and other Urdu writings or Telugu writings, we do have some kind of trends which we see. One is the journey from the content, in terms of content, the journey from eroticism to romanticism. Most of the ghazals, Urdu ghazals written by Gawasi and others, they also do talk about some kind of transition from eroticism to romanticism. See, cultural refinement. Cultural refinement is one important aspect when we speak. There is an element of promiscuity. When see, generally, complete eroticism is not as refined as romanticism. Romanticism is different in literature, eroticism is different. So the increasing trend towards romanticism in Qutubshahi period literature, whether it is Telugu literature, or whether it is Urdu ghazals, we see this trend. So one trend is eroticism, the second trend is romanticism, third important trend is translation. In Deccan history, in Hyderabad history or Telangana history or Andhra history, broadly Telugu history, translations did not pick up in the pre-Qutubshahi period. Whereas Mughals were involved in a lot of translation studies, Qutubshahis are the first rulers in Telugu regions where they were interested in doing a lot of translations, from Sanskrit to Persian and Urdu, and in fact, very important works like Padmavat, which was written by Malik Muhammad Jayasi, that was also translated. We have a book called Tuti Nama. In this book we have a lot of translations even from the stories which are similar to Puranic tales. So translation studies, development of translation works is very interesting. And friends, this also shows the cosmopolitan nature of the rulers. See, culture is something that is very, very important, in any state, even today also, or today's, what do you mean by Indian culture or Indian cultural nationalism? So culture gives a particular identity to a region, a particular, it caters to the intellectual aspirations of the people. So Qutubshahis were the first people, like Mughals in the North India, in medieval India. Qutubshahis replicated the same model of cultural cosmopolitanism, which has given a very good identity to the Qutubshahi rule as a segment of culture. So that is translation. The fourth one, evolution of language. The fourth trend we see in Qutubshahi literature, language and literature, we see the clear-cut emergence of Deccani Urdu. Now Urdu is supposed to have been contributed significantly by Amir Khusro in the north, who in the time of Alauddin Khilji was there. But Urdu in North India is different from Urdu in South, in Deccan, Golconda, Maharashtra, Andhra, Telangana, parts of Karnataka and Maharashtra is called Deccan Plateau, right? So there is a new style of Urdu language that has become Dakkani Urdu, that is the most important cultural development in terms of Qutubshahis. Now what is Dakkani Urdu? It's a combination of Persian words, it's a combination of Sanskrit words, it's a combination of Telugu words, and of course the Urdu. So the confluence of these four major languages, one is Persian, the second one is also Sanskrit, the third one is Telugu, the fourth one is original Urdu, which we see in North India. This has led to a different form of evolution, which is Dakkani Urdu, and in literary genre, in literary terminology, literary style, Dakkani Urdu is considered to be very profound, in terms of the classiness of the language. It is very refined, and this evolution of Dakkani Urdu was also contributed partly by the Sufis of the Deccan. Sufism was also very much popular. So the next important element of culture is that we do find Iranian influence to a greater extent. This is a speciality to Hyderabad, Golconda. We have to use Golconda here. This is a speciality to Golconda culture and Qutubshahi culture. We see more and more Iranian influence, which we don't find much in Bijapur and Ahmednagar for that matter. Okay, so Hyderabad has Golconda Sultans have opened their arms to welcome one and all, and we see a lot of Iranian influence. And in terms of demography, in terms of population also, the Telangana demography, is becoming more richer with lot of advent from the outsiders, and they never remained like outsiders. They became part of the local culture. In the Bahmani we have Afakis, which was very much distinctive from the locals in Bahmani kingdom in Gulbarga and Bidar. But in Hyderabad, the Afakis flow has more or less localized over a period of time. Okay, see, when Nizam's time again, we have a lot of mulki, non-mulki issues, but except in Akkanna Madanna time, there was some opposition to him, not necessarily because they were, the locals or non-locals are Hindus, but there are certain issues. I have read a lot about Akkanna and Madanna because I also teach in the universities. I used to teach. Now, of course, this is my full-time profession. Akkanna has so many skills. You are writing something, no? I am sitting here. You are writing there something. I can sit here and see what you are writing. He can actually copy by observing the letters. He can actually see. Lot of traders and others, including Tavernier and others, they mention this kind of skills because they were not a Tavernier. All the business people are very careful while dealing with Akkanna because he will find out what they are thinking. He's very, very intelligent man. There are some court issues, of course. Akkanna Madanna is not part of our discussion specifically for this group 1 mains. But there is some issue. But Qutubshahis managed to control the Afaki local issue, mulki or non-mulki issue, that became more a problem in Telangana only from the Nizam time, but not in the Qutubshahi time. So we should say that there is a positive environment in the court, which is also culturally very, very important. So friends, culturally see so much contribution. Let us talk about language. I did tell you what are the important trends in language: eroticism, romanticism, translation, and evolution of languages. Evolution of languages, we have Urdu, as we have Telugu also. Some of the first important developments in Telugu started in Qutubshahi period. We will come back to that. So now let me tell you the Dakkani Urdu and Persian growth. Some of the books we need to mention. I always advise, never dump the paper with a lot of facts, like group 2 bits, one by one. Put an analysis and give some samples, some examples. Now here we are saying what are the growth, what are the trends. Now let us go to some examples. Exemplifying analysis will give you the maximum marks. If you want to get 7 or 8 out of 10 marks, you just put an analysis, then substantiate with some facts, so that examiner will know that you are balanced. Now, what are the facts we can even mention here, given the limited time of 12 minutes you get? These are the things you need to mention. So, we have a very interesting author called Kurha, who wrote Tariq-i-Nizam-Shahi. It's a semi-historical work. Then Muhammad Amin was there. He wrote Qutubshahis. Then Mullah Qian Firoz wrote lot of Urdu ghazals, and this is also very, very important, you know. In fact, the sultans themselves were proficient in these languages. There is a difference in a person directly knowing something and patronizing somebody. For example, I am running this institute. If I am not a teacher, if I am only an investor, I put everything together, then I don't know the quantity aspects, how people are running. I will be simply a businessman. But I also teach, I also know what is good or bad, so I may be better. Right? Like that, if sultans themselves were writers, if sultans themselves were interested in this language and literary pursuits, definitely the quality of output will be better. So we have Muhammad Quli, who built Hyderabad actually. So there is a very well written lines which are oft quoted by many people in the universities, or you have to quote in the exam also. You know, he was a very good writer in Persian. He likes Persian very well. He wrote lot of sayings, proverbs, lot of we can't call them pamphlets, but lot of writings. You know, he is there, personal collection writings. So you know, he is very good in comparing things. Literature, you know, I don't know how many of you are literature students here, but literature is always strengthened by similes. SIMILES, similes అంటే పోలికలు. తెలుగులో ఉపమానాలు అంటారు సాంస్క్రిట్లో. ఇప్పుడు కాళిదాస్ ఉన్నాడు ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్. కాళిదాస్ ఎందుకంటే గొప్ప, కాళిదాస్ ఇచ్చే ఉపమానాలు చాలా బాగుంటాయి. షేక్స్పియర్ వై ఈజ్ ఏ గ్రేట్ రైటర్ ఇన్ ఇంగ్లీష్, హిస్ కంపారిజన్స్ ఆర్ వెరీ గుడ్. మామూలుగా చెప్పడానికి ఇప్పుడు రామాయణం ఉంది, సుందరకాండ ఈజ్ వెరీ బ్యూటిఫుల్. దాన్ని మామూలుగా చెప్పడానికి కట్టే కొట్టే తెచ్చాడు అని తేడా లేదు. రామాయణం 3 ముక్కల్లో చెప్పాలంటే కట్టే కొట్టే తెచ్చాడు. వారిది కట్టాడు, రావణ్ణి కొట్టాడు, సీతను తెచ్చాడు. బట్ దానికి అంత రామాయణం ఉంది, వాల్మీకి రామాయణం. సో సి లాంగ్వేజ్ is basically cement. So beautifully you present it. Now this, why I am saying this is, this Quli is said to have written one interesting lines that I am building the city of Hyderabad. Now how fish are filled in seas, you fill my city with population. అంటే చేపలు ఒక సముద్రంలో ఎలా ఉంటాయో అంతమంది పాపులేషన్ ఈ సిటీలో ఉండాలి, ఇట్ షుడ్ గ్రో అని చెప్పాయన. he wrote in Persian. So these are mentioned by the foreign travelers, and this is a very, very interesting point, you know, that if they themselves are writers, automatically there is a growth. And you see, it is not simply normal writing like historical writing, semi-historical writing, or fiction or ghazals or stories. You know, we have a very interesting writer in Persian called Mir Momin. He is the person who wrote extensively on science and technology related matters. You know, in Persian, in Qutubshahis period, you know, technology, the astronomy. He was writing on astronomy. He was writing on weights and measures, how to make them scientific and foolproof. So there is a lot of contribution done by this person for science and technology related writing. That is also one important. In Persian, of course. Then I already told you this. Mullah Qian and Firoz, they are very good ghazal writers. And you know, the Mahafil is a cultural place. I told you earlier. You know, Mahafil means a cultural place in Urdu. Hyderabad Mahafil, Golconda Mahafil is very, very important, where literary discussions used to happen, where poets used to meet. There are a lot of culture place, that a lot of cultural activity was happening. Then of course, this is a very, very interesting story. Gawasi is a popular Urdu writer. He was writing in the time of Abdullah. Okay, he wrote a very interesting book called Tutinama. This is inspired by a similar work written in Mughal court. Okay, Mughal court in the time of Akbar, Tutinama. So the beauty of this is actually the translation is parrot tales. You know, చిలక చెప్పిన కథ అన్నమాట, సింపుల్ గా చెప్పాలంటే. The story plot is like that. It has lot of interesting moral stories And also, as I said, some of these stories were also inspired by the Puranic tales. Okay, so more importantly, please remember, more importantly, it also has it is the first book which has miniature paintings for illustrations. You know, miniature paintings are like our A4 size paintings, or half of it. You know, these are called Dakkani columns. For the first time, a new style of Dakkani columns. We will also talk about it in art and architecture. So this book has some illustrations, which is the first of its kind book with illustrations. Photos. ఇప్పుడు మనం రాసి ఫోటోలు ఎలా పెట్టుకుంటాం graphs లో అలాగా. The first book of the Qutubshahis, which has illustrations, paintings, miniature paintings. Then Ghulam Ali, I already told you this. Padmavat he is also in the time of Abdullah Qutub Shah. So he translated Padmavat, which was written by Malik Muhammad Jaisi in Hindi in North India. So that's why he said the analysis point is that we set the 4 trends. We see all the 4 trends here in Persian and Urdu literature. Now let us talk about the Telugu literature. The interesting point is Qutubshahi rulers were following Islam by religion. Point number 1. They love Persian. Most of the rulers also loved Persian. Whether it is the first ruler Kuli, then up to Muhammad Qutub Shah, everybody loved Persian also. But then they also had a lot of predilection to patronize Telugu literature, Telugu writers, Telugu poets. And we have Ibrahim Qutub Shah time onwards, the Telugu really picked up, patronage of Telugu really picked up. This is at 2 levels. One is at the court level, where the poets were patronized, maintained or extended as patronage gifts and others by the rulers. The other one is, the most important is the popular Telugu literature. The popular culture also developed. It's not always the poets who are patronized by the kings wrote, but normally also when lot of other writers who are writing on themselves without any patronization. So this is important, and this is the unique feature of the Qutubshahi culture. See, Kakatiyas patronizing Telugu is no. I mean, we are not belittling them, but it is fine. Anyway, they are the Telugu rulers, so they patronize. Qutubshahis patronizing Telugu literature is a unique thing. And you know, in fact, despite the change in the political regime, where we have the rulers from outside who got localized in any way, or the Muslims or whatever, there was no change in the patronage, even if you compare the composition of the rulers from Kakatiya to Qutubshahis. That is the unique feature. Now some of the examples again, you have to see, this I already said, this literature growth was driven by the localization of the rulers. You know, they never felt that our language is same, different, we are foreigners or whatever. So that is the main reason. And he really was efficient, as I told you, in Telugu. Some of the important works, why are we selecting these works to be mentioned? Because there is some speciality in this. There are many works if you want to prepare for objective, but for the mains, these are the works you need to quote. You know, we have Addanki Gangadhara Kavi in the time of Ibrahim Qutub Shah. Then he wrote Tapati Savarnopakyanam, Pandupura Rudrakavi, Nachiketopakyanam. They are Puranic stories. Then Ponnagadi Telanacharya, this is very important book. Yaya Charitra, this is the first Telugu Kavya. Okay, in complete Telugu, Acha Telugulo vachinatuvanti first Kavya is this. Then we have Kancharla Gopal, Ramadas. I was just telling you that we see 2 levels of Telugu literature and language growth. One is at the court level, which are patronized by the rulers and others. The other one is popular culture. So Kancharla Gopalna is seen as representative of the popular culture in Telangana at this point of time, who also propagated the Bhakti movement. You know, Bhatta Ramadas Kirtans, right? He was not initially patronized, he was arrested and all these things, right? So, but later, this Ramadas Kirtans represent 2 aspects from the language point of view. for the first time in a very common language understandable to the masses, Ramadas wrote kirtans which are understandable even to the illiterates in Telangana region and Telugu region. There of course we have Annamaya in Andhra at the same time, Bhakti saint, but Telangana mainly Telugu literature at this point of time is Ramadas, which you need to mention, and this represented not only the growth of Telugu literature but also popular language, colloquial language. Okay, so where you need not know all the Sanskrit and other languages to understand this. Then we also have another popular writer, Kshatriya. He visited Abdullah's court actually. Imagine a great poet like Kshatriya who is called Padakavita Pitamaha, that is the title of Kshatriya. Okay, so Padakavitas, he is very very important in Padakavitas. So he was also honored and respected by these things. Now what are the new style in Telugu? There is new genre, literary genre that came up in Telugu at this point of time. Chatupadhyas, Kavyas, then Satakas, very very important point. Yesterday we were talking about Vemana, if you remember, in the society, right? So Satakas is a new style of literature which has lot of social and economic content in their composition. You know, we also get to know a lot of social details, so right, society, their protest elements and all that. Now Vemana Satakas are very popular. There is a controversy about Vemana, okay, for a long time, but now it is settled. You know, initially people thought he belonged to the Reddy kingdom. He was the man who was from the royal family of Reddys, Pandavin Reddys, known as Kumaragiri Vema Reddy, and he got frustrated because of some issues, developed philosophy, left everything. That is the old story about Vemana. But later it is proven that he lived of course in Kadapa, in Andhra, in the Qutubshahi period, that is 17th century, 1600, 1670s. C.P. Brown, who had done a lot of research on Vemana, he has also clearly said, proved with a lot of Vemana Sataka collections that he belonged to the Qutubshahi period. So Vemana belonged to the Qutubshahi period. In Kadapa, of course, we have Yogi Vemana University there now. In there is a great C.P. Brown library in Kadapa where the original collections of Vemana's Satakas were also preserved. So Vemana is also a writer which belonged to the Qutubshahi period, and this new trend of writing Satakas is also started by Vemana and continued. You know, by 17th and 18th centuries, 1600s and 1700s, Sataka literature became very very popular. There are also other Satakas. For example, Kukuteshwara Satakam is by Kurvanada. These are important Satakas that came up. So then there is another literary work which is called Hamsa Vimsati. Okay, Hamsa Vimsati by Ayyanraju Narayana Macha. That is also very very interesting text, which is written in the 17th century. 17th century, later part of 17th century, towards the end of it, beginning of the 18th century, this book is dated, and this also gives a lot of stories. About the social conditions and all that. So the whole point is that, see, we were discussing almost this from the last half an hour. There's so much development in culture, a cultural content, only in language and literature in the Qutubshahis. That's why this becomes very very important point for us, and examination point of view also, of course, very very important. There are some more things we need to see.